In LA, and particularly along our major corridors, black churches control approximately 10% of land along this area. And you have to understand that we have a lot of storefront churches, but we also have a lot of medium-sized churches here in Los Angeles, and we have a lot of large churches here in Los Angeles. And by and large, in any community of color, you will find a high number, a high concentration of religious institutions. When I lived in Dallas, it was the same example. When I lived in Detroit, it was the same situation. When I lived in Washington, D.C., there was a church, as we used to joke, on every corner, some small, some large. And in LA, that's no exception. Again, approximately 10% of all the land along our major corridors are actually owned and operated by churches. Some of these are vacant lots, but some of these are developed areas. Expect that percentage to actually increase as a result of land appreciation here in California. Now, many of you have heard about this economic recession. Well, here in California, we have been hit hard, and as a result, property values have drastically declined. We have individuals that are walking away from their homes just because the value has depreciated some 50, 60%. As a result of this, there is an opportunity for institutions, for organizations like religious institutions to purchase additional property for future development. Also in California, there has been recent public policy reform as it relates to redevelopment. In many of your communities, you have redevelopment law. In 2012, the California Supreme Court supported Governor Brown. Just for a moment. We supported Governor Brown in his decision to abolish and to eliminate redevelopment authorities in the state of California. And so that literally went into effect February 1st, 2012. There had been a great debate about this for some time. It went up to the California Supreme Court and the decision was rendered. Now what that means is that there are not only professionals like you and I that are out of work, but there are a number of authorities, a number of entities that held thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of land in key prime areas that are now having to, as they say, wind down those projects. If up to the point to selling off assets. And this was done as a means of trying to deal with the state deficit. So as a result of now all of this land on the market, entities like churches are buying up land. Private sector entities are buying up land for future development. And then finally, just for greater delivery of services during this economic downturn, I've noticed that the church, when it used to be a place of spiritual refuge, is not just that place anymore. My church offers employment opportunities to the public. The church that I attend offers counseling services free to the residents. My church offers legal assistance. So the church has gone beyond just providing spiritual assistance on a Sunday, and they're literally open every day of the week with the exception of Monday. And so all of these things have created this extra activity and extra agenda for African American churches, not only here in Los Angeles, but in most areas where you go. Specifically here in LA, black churches are creating more community development corporations and establishing more private-public partnerships. And in the presentation today, we'll talk about some of that. There are also several religious alliances that are set up to focus on critical quality of life issues. So, there are times when the Alliance of Baptist Pastors will come together, and they will come together and take a stance on a particular item. Most recently, I'm reminded of the issue with with Trayvon Martin. And that has been an issue that has come up, you know, in the African American community here in Los Angeles, and many of the African American pastors have formed together to take a stance on this particular project. So much so that my pastor came to church without his robe and in a hoodie one day. But certainly making a statement about, you know, these particular issues. And so, you know, this has led to the church becoming more than just a spiritual refuge, a place where we go to worship and to really take on all the political, social, economic issues that we face today. Because I knew there were individuals that were going to be coming from out of town, I wanted to make sure that you understand and understood the context of this area that we're going to be looking at. Prior to the civil unrest of 1992, the area used to be called South Central. It had such a negative connotation that after the civil unrest, they changed the name to South Los Angeles as a result. So what I did is I've kind of highlighted a general area. Generally, anything that's south of the 10 freeway, which is just north of us, is considered South Los Angeles. Traditionally, African Americans settled in Los Angeles along Central Avenue, which is a little bit further east of this university. But by and large, this is the area that is considered South Los Angeles, and the churches that I'm going to discuss are all located within this area. Black churches in LA have been at the forefront of public reform for well over a century in the city's history. Just to give you an example, Biddy Mason fought for her freedom back in the 1800s. So this was a lady that actually petitioned to the city of Los Angeles to be free. She later went on to find the oldest, largest African American church here in the city of Los Angeles, and that is First AME Fame, as they call it. That's also the church that I attend. Acquisition of land and construction grew quite a bit post-World War II, and we see this all around the country, you know, in other areas. So a lot of churches began to acquire land, began to acquire churches that were formerly Jewish synagogues. In some cities, I used to live in Detroit, and there are several churches in that city where you could still see Jewish symbols that were not taken out when the churches were sold to African American congregations. But certainly here in Los Angeles, there were a great deal of developments of churches right after post-World War II time periods. The aftermath of the LA riots in '64 and 2002, and then certainly around the election of LA's first black mayor, and then other political leaders within the area.